West Ham take on Arsenal this weekend in a very heated London derby, one that we don't want to lose 6-0 in again, Slough. We're coming off the back of a good win, though, up at St James's Park, that 2-0 win on Monday night. Arsenal themselves coming off that 5-1 win in midweek against Sporting CP or Sporting Lisbon. And yeah, they're going to be full of confidence. They've got ambitions of their own. We've got our own ambitions. Obviously, with Man City's recent form, the title race is wide open for both Liverpool and Arsenal to try and sweep in. And not for West Ham. We've got our own ambitions, as I said, but yeah, I think we'll just be looking for a performance here and to build off of what we did up at St James's Park. So we're going to go and preview the game. We're going to break down the tactics, the analysis, and look at where Arsenal are dangerous, how they're going to likely set up, and how we can potentially get at Arsenal and find some success in this really, really difficult fixture. So if you do enjoy, make sure to subscribe, leave a like on the video. And Sloth, before we go through the stats, is your confidence a little bit higher after that win up at Newcastle, or is it still pretty low at the moment because of the opposition we're going to be facing on Saturday?
My confidence is low in general, Frankie. You've known me enough by now. No, I think, look, it was good to win. This is a very different animal, and I mean that with all due respect, like to Newcastle. You know, they're a very good side, but Arsenal they're that level above, and I think, you know, any West Ham fan would be nervous going into this, I think. And what I am trying to do is look at it in a positive light and say this is where we're going to find out a bit more about the minerals that we have, and see if maybe the Newcastle game was a true representation of what we're trying to do and the side in general, how we're going to go forward, or if it was maybe more of a flash in the pan.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And as we mentioned before, Lopetegui was under serious pressure. Mikel Arteta's under a different type of pressure at Arsenal, having spent a lot of money over the last 5 years. And now there is that pressure externally and from probably within the club to win silverware, win a trophy. And, you know, they've been competing at the top for the last couple of seasons now, but they just haven't managed to get over the line. So their fan base will be looking to win something this season. And obviously, the Premier League is going to be one of the toughest. But as I mentioned, City's form has left it wide open for the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal to compete and try and win that trophy this season. So let's look at the stats of both clubs so far in the Premier League. West Ham on 15 points to Arsenal's 22. We've scored 15 goals to Arsenal's 21. 19 goals conceded from our side to Arsenal's 12. And we find ourselves in 14th position to Arsenal's 4th. When we change that to the expected stats, we're slightly above our baseline, so 13.62 points, expected points. Arsenal at around 20.25. Our expected goals scored is 18.05 compared to Arsenal's 23.53. Our expected goals conceded is a lot higher at 22.86 compared to Arsenal's 14.91. Our expected position is actually the same as where we are, so we are currently tracking to our baseline in 14th. Arsenal, to the statistics, have slightly overperformed and should be 7th with the data we've seen so far. And just to pick out a few stats from Arsenal's side, they have the second best defensive record in the Premier League so far this season with 12 goals conceded. Only Liverpool have a better defensive record with 8 goals conceded. Arsenal's expected defensive record in the Premier League as well is very good and the 4th best with 14.91. They have the 6th best offensive record in the Premier League so far this season, having scored 21 goals. They're averaging around 1.75 goals per game with an XG of 1.16. They're averaging around 13.25 shots a game as well. And the last one kind of surprised me. Their possession stats so far this season, they're averaging just over 51.5%. So not as dominant as I probably would have expected to see given the stature of the club. I'm guessing it's they've had a few instances where they've gone down to 10 men, Bournemouth, Brighton. So those statistics do get swayed a little bit. And I just think away from home, they're quite happy to be compact and not always control or dominate, 65, 70% possession under Mikel Arteta. So going into this game stuff, we're going to go through some examples of how Arsenal set up and the areas we need to be careful of. But in general, how do you see Arsenal coming to the London Stadium and approaching this, given that their form is up and obviously they beat us 6-0 in the league last season? So that's going to be fresh of both of our sets of players' minds. But how do you think they're going to approach this one coming to the London Stadium on Saturday?
I mean, they're obviously going to be on the front foot. After a very disappointing performance at Newcastle, they have corrected and they've got themselves sort of back in where they wanted to be. And I think the performance against Sporting Lisbon was fantastic. It's something that, to go away to a European side, and particularly one with a threat like Gyökeres, look, Sporting Lisbon's full of quality, and I think anyone who just looks at that result and goes, it's only Sporting Lisbon, it's only the Portuguese, it's only Lignos, like that doesn't tell the story. They were good. The Sporting Lisbon weren't bad. It wasn't a case of they looked really poor. It was that Arsenal looked in control. They defended really well, and even when Sporting had a bit of a sniff, it was a case of Arsenal dealt with it and they nullified the threat that they had. And I think part of that is going to be from this is going to be what they look to do again. Arteta is, he's not my favourite person. I've made that very clear, but he is a very, very good manager, and he can set up. I know they've tried to make this 4-3-3 switch, and I think we've seen where they've struggled at times, but I think it's a positive step forward. And once they sort of get the personnel nailed down, if they can get a proper striker, I think 4-3-3 will be the long-term plan for them. And I can't see them moving away from that sort of positive step that they took in Lisbon in the week.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, as you mentioned, I think that game in Lisbon was probably Arsenal's strongest team on paper, give or take a couple of players. Like arguably Ben White could be in that 11 or Marino in the midfield. But I think that's pretty much their strongest 11. And it's the first time they've probably seen it in a while, given the injuries they had and, things that have happened this season. So, yeah, I think that was a good representation of the type of Arsenal team, especially going away in Europe. Arteta didn't have the best record going into European away trips, going into this game in midweek. But look, the focus shifts back to the Premier League for them, for both of us. And it's going to be really important that we are switched on from the start, because Arsenal were extremely aggressive in the opening 10, 15 minutes against Sporting. They were really brave. They pushed up high up the pitch. Obviously, Sporting play a slightly different formation than West Ham will. But as you mentioned there, kind of Arsenal switch into a very fluid system. So off the ball, we can expect him to kind of sit in as a 4-4-2. Odegaard almost acts as, we know he plays as the number 10, but out of possession. You'll see this with a lot of clubs at the moment, but Odegaard will kind of push up to play alongside Havertz. And we'll see this 4-4-2 or 4-2-4 structure in operation. And I really think West Ham need to be switched on to the way Arsenal are going to set up defensively, because in a mid or low block, Arsenal are one of the best in Europe, but they've shown against Sporting that they can push high up the pitch as well, and they can go man for man. And we were very brave against Newcastle. I think in moments where we were dropping in and Paqueta and Soler in midfield were connecting, we were bypassing Newcastle's press quite easily. To be honest, they were quite open. Arsenal won't be that, especially with Rice and Partey in midfield and the way Arteta's got them structured. So I think that first 10 to 15 minutes is going to be extremely important for us to not concede and not lose our confidence, because Arsenal are going to try and impose themselves early on. And I can see Arsenal being a little bit more ambitious in those opening 15, 20 minutes and trying to get a 1 or 2-0 lead and then controlling the game in a mid or low block and then being happy to counterattack, as they did in Portugal in midweek. So how do we get past that? Because this, as we mentioned, this shape here is extremely difficult to get through. They don't have the second best defensive record in the Premier League for no reason. And this is arguably their strongest squad now. So we'd expect a similar lineup going into this on Saturday, which we'll get onto at the end. But what do we need to be careful of when Arsenal are pressing us? And how do we almost bypass that? Is it hitting the channels a little bit more? Is Antonio going to be crucial in this type of fixture? What do we do, Slough?
I think Antonio is going to be very important. Part of my worry is that they have moved back to the sort of Arsenal that I grew up with, when it was big physical centre backs. And I think for the past few seasons, particularly under the sort of end years of Wenger's tenure, I don't think they quite had that. They had the poor mix and defensive reputation. They've nailed that down, and we've done a video on Calafiori, and he was linked with us at times. Obviously, he's gone there and he is performing really well. They have got big defensive units that I think they've got one of the highest average heights in the league, haven't they? And when you see the combination of pace, physicality, but also defensive awareness and skill and reading of the game, they are, for me, I think they're probably the best defensive unit in the Premier League, in my opinion. It would be, if you think otherwise, let us know. But I think that they just have that really good combination. And my worry is that maybe Antonio's effectiveness there is going to be nullified by that physicality. I do think that where it's going to maybe pay off is on the wings, where we can look to try and knock it past someone, because they are quick, but Bowen and Somerville, they're rapid. So that's where we can look to cause problems. And I think if we can get it out wide and work those fullbacks, I think that's probably going to be our best sort of outlet.
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely difficult game, but I think, as I mentioned before, those early kind of indications and the early stages of the match are going to be so important for us, because Arsenal are going to be extremely confident going into this, and they had success over in Sporting midweek when they were playing quite a high press to start with. And again, they're happy to sit in a 4-4-2 shape, but they know when to press. And it's going to be difficult because when they do have the ball, they obviously have quality in abundance across the line. I think Martin Odegaard returning to their starting 11 is a massive, massive boost for them, because he does something very, very clever and something only a handful of footballers can do. Is playing that number 10 role. And we spoke about it before, Sloth. I think it was in midweek after we praised Paqueta's performance from a deeper position. And we said he's not that type of player to play between the lines and connect play. Well, that's Martin Odegaard in abundance. And, you look at the type of positions he picks up, he will just drift to this right-hand side, because in possession, obviously, Partey sits at the base, Rice plays as that kind of left-sided 8, and Odegaard almost drifts where he wants, but it's more to this right-hand side, so Saka's freed up and it takes away that body. But Odegaard will do this time and time and time again. He will just drift into these positions between the midfield and defence. The ball will get circulated over to the right-hand side, for example, and he'll pick up pockets of space. And it's extremely difficult to mark this. And I just worry that the way we play, if we do play a midfield of Soler, Paqueta, and Souček, we're going to have to be very, very careful with those types of positions he picks up, because we've seen teams doubling up on Saka, and we're going to have to do that if we want to kind of nullify his strengths as a player. He's in exceptional form. He's an exceptional player. But Martin Odegaard will help kind of free up that space for him. And that's why he drifts out to that right-hand side and finds those spaces. So how difficult is it going to be to nullify Martin Odegaard's strengths in this game, Sloth, especially because, I mean, we'll get onto the predicted lineups at the end, but if we do start that same midfield three we did at St. James's Park, who's going to be responsible for doing that? How do we stop Martin Odegaard from having an impact on this match?
I think it will probably be a responsibility for Paqueta, where we let him sit that bit deeper and just follow him about and try and, not get too physical, but, outmuscle him and then nick the ball off him. I think that would be a really interesting matchup as well. And it's going to be one that we have to really look at. It's interesting because I think that Arsenal really lack a centre forward, and that's one thing that Newcastle have nailed. Like, Newcastle nailed down their centre forward, and Isak is an incredible prospect as a striker. And there's lots of links for Arsenal to trying to move toward him, and I think that would be, that would put them in
perfect signing for them.
Yeah, regular title contention for the next 5-6 years, in my opinion. He's that good. I don't think they have a striker who is that good, and it's probably going to come back to bite me in the arse. But I just don't think Havertz is that level. I don't think he's the same type of centre forward, or the type of centre forward that they do need. And while he has a lot of skill and quality, and he links up play very well, I think that when you're looking at the type of striker that would work against us, I think potentially we're going to be trying to look at bullying him with Max Kilman. Whether Todibo is recovered from his bug or not is going to be up in the air. But Mavropanos, last time we played Arsenal, was fantastic. So it could well be a case of just trying to bully Havertz. I think that might well be the best defensive option because, as you know, and as you said, we have to double up on Saka. They have players of such quality like Odegaard that have to either be man marked or doubled up on. And I think that if we can nullify those threats, those outstanding players that they have, then we give ourselves a chance. But it is a very big ask.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. And, you know, Odegaard isn't the only creative quality they have in the midfield. They actually have it from a person I don't like particularly, but Thomas Partey. And, you know, their goal in midweek from this sort of position where Partey receives the ball, Odegaard's obviously occupying that right-hand space that we just mentioned. And Saka's first instinct is to run in behind. And Emerson's going to have to be extremely aware of this because they'll look to do it. As soon as Partey gets the ball, he has the quality to play that pass over top. And it's exactly what he does. Saka squares it for Havertz and Arsenal go 2-0 up. So that type of movement we're going to have to be very careful of. I know Jared Bowen poses a similar threat on the other side as well. So it works for both ways. As soon as Paqueta's picking up the ball in those positions, we've seen him play time and time again those balls over the top, or at least try to. But yeah, we can't afford to give players like Thomas Partey that much time and space in midfield as well. So it's a really difficult blend. And
Yeah,
I would say, I mean, to be
he's a
honest, I would.
player. He's a player renowned for putting things in unwanted positions, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's I think it's a disgrace what's going on with him, and that's, you know, it's a different topic. But he is a player that will cause you problems, and to be honest, I would just like someone to go in and clean him out in the first. You know, I know it's an old cliche, but go in from the first minute, hammer hard, and leave a bit on him.
Well, I
I
think
think that,
off the ball, his legs have gone. You know, he's got to a
yeah,
point where he's going to be a little bit of a liability defensively, but obviously in possession, he's got the quality. But I guess that's where Rice alleviates some of that pressure from him if he's playing alongside him. But I think our best bet really is to try and keep Odegaard front facing, so not in between the lines as much as possible. Going to be very difficult to do, and limit the amount of space we're giving Thomas Partey in those positions. And to be honest, give Declan Rice the ball as much as possible in those situations because we already know he's not that creative midfielder. He'll obviously drive and carry the ball and then play it out to Martinelli or, you know, ping it wide to Saka. But if we're going to nullify Arsenal, we have to stop both Partey and Odegaard in the middle from controlling the game when they have possession. And to be honest, I think our best bet is to allow Rice a little bit more of the ball and just kind of sit in and keep Odegaard and Partey out of the game as much as possible. But, you know, they have quality, they have pace. Obviously, Martinelli on the left, Saka on the right. They just have quality all over the pitch. And it's not even just from open play. They've been one of the best set piece teams in Europe over the past couple of seasons. We've started to see it really ramp up from corners. And, you know, it was another set piece in midweek stuff where we're going to have to be very careful of this because we've been a little bit susceptible to set pieces and corners in particular this season. And Arsenal are one of the best at it. And this is what they did at the in midweek. So what they do a lot of the time, obviously Rice is in swing in the corner from the left-hand side. They gather at the back post. There's 5 of them there you can see in shot. And Gabriel, just 1-for-1, you can see there man for man. He's just sitting in the middle of the box there. And as soon as the ball's about to come in, again, you can see there he's touch tight. They've got 5 at the back, the in-swinging corner from Rice. And then you see this. So Gabriel does that into-out movement. He's always going to go towards the back post where the space is. Rice floats it towards the back post. And then just in that screen there where we've zoomed in, you can see that 2 players of Sporting are being blocked off by Arsenal. So Calafiore is blocking up off player 1 at the bottom right. And then I think that's Thomas Partey as well, blocking off another player there to create the space for Gabriel to have a free run at it. We're going to have to be very, very careful because this resulted in a goal. Gabriel is extremely good in the air from these positions as well. How difficult is this going to be to defend? And how, you know, we talk about open play, you know, we're going to have to be switched on for so long. Normally set pieces are a chance to breathe a little bit. Obviously, you need to be switched on alert, but they're a chance to just take a breath, relax, have it your organization and clear the ball. You can't afford any switch off throughout the 90 minutes against Arsenal, whether that's open play or set pieces. So how do we stop this from being as effective as it has been for Arsenal so far?
Well, I think, you know, they did a fantastic job in appointing Nicholas Jover, you know, the ex-Man City set piece coach, and they're reaping the benefits of it. they look really dangerous. And you know, the sort of cliched Arsenal of the past sort of decade, I think they don't have that sort of set piece routine, or they didn't have that sort of set piece routine. And this is where so many goals come from in football now, where particularly when you are all above 6 foot, it's something that teams are going to have to look for different ways to try and score. They have the best set piece coach. As I said, Jova is he hasn't won what he's won without being the best. And I think that when you look at just how many routines they have, how they manage corners, as you said, it's something that we're going to have to be really switched on about. Normally, I'd feel pretty confident with set pieces because, as I mentioned, you know, we are also a very big physical side. But I think it's the pace and the aerial ability, the combination of all those things, and not just that, but it's the intensity that Arsenal have. It's the fact that they will challenge for that second ball, or they will be on it in a flash, and that is something that title winners, you know, they have to have. And if they want to challenge for it, if they want to be up there with Liverpool in the coming months, I think these are the type of games where they need to show that metal, the minerals for that. And if Kilman and whoever his defensive partner is can keep a hold on that, then I think there's a good chance we keep the score down. It's just a case of we know that they are capable of very tricky routines. Someone like Gabriel, fantastic in the air and poses a massive threat. But it's also the fact that they have players like Calafiori who can hit it. You know, if it comes back towards the edge of the area, then they're more than capable of rifling it into the area, into the net. If we can get a handle on that, I think that puts us in really good stead. We need to have a bit more of a plan for set pieces, because we've seen it at times, often with Wan-Bissaka, when he will be on the post and kind of loses his way a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if we can have people constantly talking, barking orders, it's something that, you know, we've said about for a while, particularly from the goalkeepers. If we can have that clear and constant communication, it will be a big way of trying to limit the threat they pose from them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's going to be tough, and we're going to need to get a little bit of luck from these sort of situations as well. But as you say, we're going to have to be switched on. We do have a tendency, especially this season, when we are faced with like set pieces and that type of corner routine, we do freeze a little bit, and we have been, as I mentioned, susceptible to conceding goals in that vein. So let's look at how both teams are predicted to line up. Again, this may change. I would say from our side, there might be a couple of differences here. So as you mentioned before, Sloth, Todibo might be out with that bug. We don't know if he's going to be back, and Mavropanos may come in, and we may alter that midfield slightly. We might bring Edson Alvarez back in. Obviously, his suspension's now over. He might be tempted to bring in Guido Rodriguez as a more defensive option. So it'll be interesting to see what Lopetegui does based off the performance from Newcastle. But that's unchanged from us. That's what we're expecting if everyone's fit. And for Arsenal, again, this is how they lined up in midweek against Sporting. I said it before, I think this is probably their strongest team on paper at the moment. And I don't think there'll be much rotation. There might be a couple. Obviously, Gabriel went off towards the end of the game, so I don't know if he's going to be fit. So there may be a change at the back. But by and large, I would expect this to be the lineup from Arsenal. So yeah, it's going to be a tough game at the London Stadium, Sloth. I'm really hoping it's not a 6-0 again like last year. What are you predicting for this game, given the forms of both sides and what we've discussed in this preview?
I think Arsenal will just edge it regardless. I think they've got the quality to do so. I hope we give a good account of ourselves, and if we play like we did against Newcastle, I think we will score a goal, but I can see it maybe being 2-1 to Arsenal. Yeah, that's me with my thinking cap on, trying to be sensible.
Yeah, I had 2-1 or 3-1, I think, as my prediction. I'll go with 3-1. I just think Arsenal they have that quality, and defensively we've been way too open this season. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? You never know what will happen. We didn't expect anything from the Newcastle game, so all hope is not lost going into this one, and we are at home. So hopefully we can, yeah, really put our foot down on the game. As I mentioned before, those first 10, 15 minutes, I think Arsenal are going to be pressing us as high as they can. So we're going to have to be brave. And who knows, we can even be a little bit brave in our press as well and put them under pressure to counteract that and give them something to think about. But we'll see. Let us know down below in the comments what are your predictions for this London derby clash on Saturday. Do you think West Ham are going to edge it? Do you think Arsenal will edge it? What's your score predictions? Let us know down below. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more content going forwards. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you irons.